To anyone in the KoveriuM channel, hello, welcome to this video. It's a pleasure to have you here, first of all, and it's been an incredible 2 months, hasn't it been? Today is October 17th as I'm recording it, and I'll be honest, I know it's 16 subs, and I know it's like, ooh, it's tiny. I don't care, man. I don't care. The fact that this channel got any semblance of recognition and any semblance of good feedback is like, to me, it's insane. So I wanted to make this video after receiving numbers of comments, in fact, about the way I scream. Basically, a lot of people would hear the way I screamed in Heaven in Hiding. Not the last part, the part you scream after the bridge, where it goes, Heaven in Hiding! Not the end, that part before the breakdown, essentially. And I wanted to make this video to clear some things up about that, and also sort of make a tutorial of sorts, if I can explain it well, on how I scream. Sorry, I'm looking at the camera too much. It's a bit high up. It's kind of weird to look up. So, first of all, the scream I did in Heaven in Hiding, it's right here if you want to hear it. And the problem a lot of people had with it is that it sounded very throaty, very scratchy, very much like I was grinding my my chords together. Like, it sounded like, kind of odd. Well, the truth of that is, I was sort of doing it, I was doing it half wrong. And it wasn't because I didn't know how to do it right, it was because I was conflicted between the techniques I wanted to use at that moment, so I sort of did both of them. I was initially bitter about it as well, but then I listened to it and I was like, you know what, it sounds good, so I'm gonna keep it in. But yeah, that is not the way I scream. The actual way I scream is actually much more indicative towards the end of the video, where I go, Heaven in Hiding! You know, that part. Heaven in Hiding! The end of the breakdown. And yeah, it's essentially been the way I've been screaming the last 3 months, in fact. Though it's not the first time I scream, not at all. I didn't start screaming in July of 2021. I actually started screaming in August of 2018. Well, rather, even earlier than that. That's when I learned false chord. My first screaming technique that I learned was back in 2015, fall of 2015. It was basically what a lot of people would call fry vocals. In my case, it developed from whisper screams, like, that sort of thing. It developed from that, and through time it became this that. But the problem I always had with it is that if you needed mucus in your throat, you needed your throat to be at this sort of midpoint between cold and warmed up. Because if it was too cold, the scream was really, how can I put it? The mucus was dry. You couldn't really get the sound out. But if it was too warm, you had no mucus because you were dry, so you couldn't make the sound. It was impossible to make the sound. So, and yeah, it also didn't really sound good on recordings and everything. It sounded very dry. A lot of people have managed to make it sound good, but not in my case. Not with the old way I used to do it, at least, which was that. So in 2018, after watching a lot of Hungry Lights, Hungry covers, just in bondage essentially, and watching a screaming tutorial, that was when I sort of started understanding how to do false chord. And then one day, while singing Vermilion, the Vermilion I've covered on the channel, I sort of just did it. I just did false chord. She's the only one that makes me sad! It was very crappy, but the sound was there. It was very chaotic and uncontrollable. And then after that, I had the splendid idea to start KoveriuM. So yeah, KoveriuM, the channel you're seeing now, is actually 3 years old, and it used to have covers from back then, but they were all crap, so I enlisted them before Heaven in Hiding. Because I was like, you know what, if I am to restart this channel, may as well not keep my old crappy ass covers on there. But yeah, they're unlisted, so if anyone wants to see them, just tell me. I'm gonna give you the link if you want to have the laugh at how crappy I used to be. So, for the longest time, up until July 2021, I used to do just standard false chord, and it was very hard to do, very hard to control. and I would always fall into the trap of overprojecting, and there was a mess. Up until this year's summer when I started watching Carnivox Academy. And through his reactions, I started piecing some patterns together that he did and some other vocalists that I would listen to, mainly Spencer Charnas, that would do. And that's when I came up with what they did. I think it's called glottal compression, but I might be wrong. Essentially, what I do to scream, and this is the main part of the tutorial here, is compress the diaphragm, as everyone does to do these, well, screams out. So, you breathe only from the stomach. Forget your lungs about this. You breathe from the stomach. That. Then you tighten, like that, like you're trying to do a sit-up, as Bonnet said one time. So you do this and you do that, basically. And then you compress your glottis, like that. Ah! When you do that, it makes this sound. Because you're compressing this here. So the air isn't coming out as much. See? You're compressing that. It's like a little thingy here. You'll know where it is. You'll know where it is once you feel it. Just trying to make this sound. And then you do that, and you do everything else. And that comes out. If I don't do the compression, that's what comes out. See, it's raspy. It's just a standard rasp that you get out of false chord when you're trying to do raspy vocals, like phalanx verses, for instance. We are the ones to lead the way. No, it's basically that, but you're compressing this. So because you're doing that, all that comes out is a little bit of phonation and more phlegm, more mucus. And because of that, you get, we are the ones to lead the way. This path to hell and misery! That. So that's what comes out. And then, what you do to make the sound better is a lot of that. Lukewarm, preferably. You take semi-frequent breaks, so you don't grind your fucking throat for like an hour and a half constantly. You should have like 3-minute breaks, 5-minute breaks between songs, just to keep sort of a balance, because your throat and your diaphragm and everything is sort of like a machine gun. When you go too much, it'll begin to overheat, and you're not gonna be able to use it anymore. It's gonna burn itself, even if you're using the right technique. So yeah, it's better to have a sort of break between songs, and that's what I always do with my covers too. Shit, I'm really stuffy today. Now as for the tone, let's say, of the scream, the pitch of the scream, the texture of the scream. The texture is going to be the same with this technique. You're not really going to change the texture much, but what you can change is the tone. And that's why I like this technique so much. It's my favorite one thus far. Because it gives you this flexibility that fry screams that I used to do have. So you can have your mid scream. That's your mid scream, but if you want to do a low scream, you're gonna do this. You're gonna do this. You're gonna make an O with your mouth. So when you do that, you get. Let me think of a lyric. Something from Ice Nine Kills. You can't baby. There we go. I'm dry. Buggers. Yeah. And if you want to do a high scream, it's the opposite thing. Ah. And here's a little trick I want to give you about the if you want to do high notes, and that goes that doesn't just talk about screaming, that isn't in reference to just screaming, it's also in reference to other types of vocals, well, clean ones, singing, that sort of thing. If you want to do high notes, you don't really have to move your larynx. You don't really have to move this thing that's in your throat here, like all of it. A lot of people think, oh, I need to do high notes. Not really. You don't do that. Because if you try to do that, you see, it's very easy to voice crack. It's very easy to move between your registers. Unless the song is very comfortable in the register you sing it in. In my case, most songs aren't, because I have this idiotic register where nearly all metal songs are in between my chest and head register. Not just in one of the two, but in between the two. So I have to figure out a way to keep it in the chest register for some things, and the head register for some things. And that involves, if I'm singing from the chest, doing this. Filling up my stomach with air, all of it, and keeping that air a lot here. So I look like I'm pregnant right now. Keeping that air in the stomach, and then compressing the diaphragm a little bit, but mainly compressing the chest, like Not you don't have to do it a lot, like now. I'm doing it for demonstration purposes. Just a little bit. You don't really even have to tighten it much. You barely do it and it goes up. And then another thing that really helps me, and I did in the Shadow of the Abattoir, is do this. Pull my chest up, basically. Pull my chest up and my head forward. And then on top of that, if you want to do higher notes even, you raise your cheeks. You do, hey, these. You raise them up, like that. Sort of like you're smiling in like a retarded person. See? You can reach pretty high notes with it. In opposite, if you want to do low notes in your head register, you just close your mouth, really. And if you're warmed up, as you see now, you can have a smooth transition between the two as well. If I wasn't warmed up now, that wouldn't exist. Simply. I'd voice crack midway. Mine sounds really crappy, but it helps with backing vocals, well, whatever. So yeah, TLDR, or TLDW rather, because it's a video. The way I scream is, you compress your diaphragm, you breathe only from your diaphragm and you can compress it, then you compress your tract, I call it, your glotti, essentially. You undo this, essentially. And then you let the air out, with relative force. In the way to fire, scorching the fleeing liars, witness the dying saboteurs, carcasses washed over the shores. And when you're singing, you make sure not to move this. You move your mouth. You make definite sure to move your mouth. Because if you move this, you're not going to burn yourself, essentially, unless you're unwarmed. You're not going to burn yourself easily. But you're going to lose the compression, it's going to sound graty. And you're not going to get the texture you want out of the scream. That's basically what I do. There you go. So, I hope that helps. If anyone wants any further explanation of how I do it, I can reply in the comments. And apart from that, I wanted to ask you a question too. Would you mind if I did reactions to the channel? I was... I don't know if it would be songs per se, but vocal covers it would probably be. But I don't know if it'd be songs. But yeah, if you want reactions, make sure to answer that in the comments if you can. I hope I receive any comments on this video. And apart from that, another little plan I have for more possible content in the future is maybe stream covers. Do vocal sessions. Let me show you what I mean. So we have, oh, here we go. Lovely track. I'm listening to the latest ITCOTD album, Silver Scream 2. Pogger's album, right there. Lyrics in the description. They respect vocal coverists. What I mean is essentially this. It's a killer spray, bitch. La 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 boo boo, it's gonna get you. ITCOTD. La 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 boo boo, falling Saboto. You will never go off, you won't make it past 6. Stopping. That's what I mean, basically. Loading playlists or suggestions from chat or something and jamming, baby! Jamming for 2 or 3 hours or so. Yeah, that's all. That's all I'd like to know from you. And that's all from me. That's all for this trade of knowledge in this video for now. I hope you enjoyed, for anyone who gave it all of it a shot or a couple of songs, I hope you enjoyed Project X as well. Like the Cord of the Dragon full album cover thing that I did this last week. Especially if you enjoyed the failings, I don't know. Because that was a big risk for me, like raising the pitch up and everything. Not vocally, but like as a concept. Apart from that, thank you for tuning in to KoveriuM. Weird breath. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the feedback. And thank you for basically giving me the best YouTube career I've ever had in 10 years that I've been on YouTube. Well, I'll see you around on the next cover or whatever I do. And have a good one.